All right. Welcome back to Pain Points, where the world meets business in this great country called America.
Amen.
Once again, Darius Bell here with my co-host,
Samson, Jagoras.
and we have your landscape. The ever-changing landscape of entrepreneurship you have to deal with as a business owner, and we got you covered. So today's stories, we're going to run down them before we jump in, and I'm out of breath because I ran.
Get his American flag hat. That's how much this man loves America.
Love this country. So much so that my lungs are failing me right now, but I'm still here for you.
On top of having a little head cold.
All right, so we're going to kick it off with the funniest clips of the week. We're going to then jump into what is the difference between the top 25 and the top 5. You may not know where we're going with that, but you're going to be impressed with what you see. We're going to talk about homeschooling surging in the USA, in particular Texas, accounting for a significant portion of that. I wonder why. We're going to talk about Harry Dent predicting the bubble of all bubbles, something you'll want to pay attention to even if you disagree with him. Reid Hoffman is his name, right? LinkedIn founder.
Yep.
Went online recently basically saying if you're a business person and you're supporting Trump, you got some issues. So we're going to dig into that. We got a bill passed that is banning CBDC here. We're going to talk about ChatGPT, Elon Musk, OpenAI, and Apple, that whirlwind of everything that's going on right now.
On top of some Meta.
Meta going deep on Nvidia. Then we're going to close it out with Sharia law in New York City, which, surprise, surprise, it's here. And then last but not least, Nancy Pelosi is in the news for reasons you may not know, depending on what side of the spectrum you're on.
Yeah, not for her insider trading this time.
But nonetheless, we're going to dig into it and talk a little bit about Donald Trump. But first, as I alluded to, funniest clips of the week here, my friend.
All right, better be funny. Last week's were, I'm going to be honest with you, they were...
Well, so just...
They were like...
Yeah, they were mid. They were
like giggles.
As the kids say, they were mid.
I don't even give you mid. They didn't even get halfway.
Ooh, okay, so here's the thing, though. We run a line, just listeners, we run a line when we do funny, because you can be funny at the expense of others, and then you're running a line and like, Mr.
That's kind of my funny. I like
Mr. Christian over here, you're just laughing at the demise of others.
Or not necessarily the demise, but it's like if you're raised in a locker room and I'm not like talking a little smack about you, that means I don't love you. Facts.
Okay. Well, that being said, next week's funniest clips are going to be the funniest clips you've ever seen. All right. But first, we kick this off from Declaration of Memes. It says, funny how this happens every time.
Tired of straight white men having the power and everything, and it's like we as women of color, as like students at this university, like we're very much capable of certain things, and we don't have the same privileges that are offered to straight white men.
And I've been hearing that from a lot of the ladies that I've been talking to today. Talk to me about what some of those privileges are that, straight white men have that you don't have. Talk to me about that.
I think I don't really know. Have you ever experienced like a specific instance?
You haven't even experienced it?
Also need to go.
She asked her friend.
I gotta go. Ooh.
Dang.
Dang.
She thought she had her moment.
They're just parroting stuff that they've heard.
She was trying to have her moment, and then she passed it to her friend who let her down.
Yeah,
I gotta
that's
go to class.
twice now. We saw that when the protesters came down from Columbia to NYU.
Yep.
And they're like, what are you protesting exactly? And she's like, to her friend, do you know what we're protesting? It's always just the pass the baton followed by the, gotta go.
I just wanted to be here. All right, so this one comes by way of Johnny Midnight at It's the DR on Twitter. Or X, my bad, Elon.
Found guilty of 34 felonies, right? Don't, he'll twist it, man. He'll make it fun. He'll make it cool. It's fine. 34 counts. Nobody's done it. Nobody can do that. Nobody can do it. 34. It's never been done. Our numbers are so big. These are big numbers. 34.
Look at the clap. That's the Trump clap.
El Chapo couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. 22 times. What a failure. Guilty on 22 counts. I said, what an amateur. 34. No, we're doing better. Al Capone couldn't do it.
The head tilt.
27 counts, which is really beginner stuff. That's beginner stuff. He couldn't do it.
What's funny about it is...
The Zodiac Killer. Can you believe this? 9 counts. I go, what is this, amateur out or 9 counts? The Zodiac. I call him the Zodiac Loser. That's what I call him. That's what I call. We are going to jail, and we are going to jail so quick and so strong, and nobody's gone this quick. 2 days, we'll be there in 2 days. We're making felonies great again. That's what we're doing.
So wrong, dude. All right.
He nailed it.
All right, you can pause it. It's funny, man. The mannerisms, they get me every time. All right. This one is called caption plot twist. It comes from funny moments, so it better make us laugh. Was that a dud?
That was a dud.
Oh, dang, let's go. Strike, swing and a miss. I thought it was funny because my man
I've
didn't.
seen that multiple times.
Oh, okay. There we go. Well, folks, that was a strike. Okay, so
This one was hilarious.
You've seen this
Yeah.
one? Okay.
Let's play it.
Jimmy Neutron granddaddy right here.
You guys look like a before and after for a product that doesn't work.
Oh, we designed before and
For real,
before?
Sid? For real?
What does ADD stand for? A dose of diabetes?
He is cooking them.
I wasn't ready for any of this.
Yeah.
You guys are wearing sweatpants and sweat skin. What, you guys just completely given up on Is that it? You guys
Maybe Doughboy, not me. I'm out here now.
Doughboy? Wait, what?
His name is Doughboy.
Doughboy?
Yeah, I spell it D-O-B-O-Y.
He thinks he's
D-O-B-O-Y. Yeah, I had a feeling you'd misspell it. You guys are two of my favorites, Two Chins and ASAP Rocky Road.
Wow. You didn't say this was coming today.
He couldn't believe they had nothing for him.
Nothing.
He
Nothing.
just roasted them. All right, we're gonna shift gears here. All right, next up we got Commander in Chief. Before you play this, I'm sorry, just think about that. He started off good with the Jimmy Neutron granddaddy one, and he wasn't ready for Tony. All right, so we got our Commander in Chief here with something really important to say.
She knows so long as she was 9, our freedom can never be secured. She knows.
This is bad, dude. Like, come on. Look at the caption. Nick Sorter says, "I give this guy a month. It's over." It's funny.
So we haven't got there yet, but when you talk about Reid Hoffman,
Yeah.
it's like, man, we have two options. This is your option. Here's our alternative,
Bro.
So you would rather re-vote that guy in than the alternative.
Totally, dude. This is what they're going for. All right, last but not least here. Wait, I think is that everything? That's everything. Okay. All right, rated out of 10. How'd I do today? 6, 7?
Much better.
Much
improved
better this
than last week.
We will continue to get better, guys. This is how we kick it off, and this is our best part here. So let's transition into the first story. The difference between the top 5 and top 25 in anything.
Yeah, so I wanted to include this because there is a lot of mindset that goes into entrepreneurship, and I think that we can glean a lot from what top athletes do and kind of what separates good from great. And so this video does an excellent job of showcasing the difference.
There was a study done in Florida at a tennis academy, and what they looked at was what is the difference between those tennis players that are top 5 in the world versus those that are top 25. Was it their diet? No. Was it their exercise? No. Was it when they started playing the game? No. Was it their coaching? No. What they actually found was this. The difference between the top 5 ranked people in the world and the others in the top 25 was their thinking. In the 10 to 15 seconds after a point had been scored in tennis, those athletes that thought positive things such as, I love this game. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. I may have not got that shot, but I'm going to get the next one. Watch this. Those athletes that thought positive, it slowed down their heart rate, slowed down their breathing rate, and across the entire competition, they were conserving a lot of energy. They were feeling better about themselves. And thus, across an entire tennis match, in the end.
So I love that. One, it sets up kind of the segue for the next story, but I always talk with my daughters about the fact that nervousness and excitement actually feel the exact same way in our body, but they differ by one thing. If you're nervous, you're thinking about everything that can go wrong. And if you're excited, you're thinking about everything that can go right. As entrepreneurs, it's crucial for us to constantly be reframing the day, the situations, the environment, all the different experiences that we're going through. Because not only are you 32% smarter in a positive frame of mind, but the moment you lose that faith is the moment you're halfway out the door, on your way to burnout, and probably won't make it. And hey, so if you're a regular listener of the show, you know that we believe in entrepreneurs. In fact, we are calling you guys to regularly take action in your community and in this country. And entrepreneurs are going to be the way that we move this country forward. Well, with that said, entrepreneurs make up 70% of the economy. And there is a massive opportunity on the horizon, which is buying businesses. Literally thousands of small to medium-sized businesses are coming to the market and looking for entrepreneurs just like you to buy them. The problem is it's incredibly challenging and fragmented and hard to navigate. That's why we created Clearly Acquired. It is a marketplace that connects brokers and their listings and buyers with community, education, finance, weekly coaching calls, monthly webinars, weekly newsletters, and ultimately one-on-one coaching to help you buy your next business. Let's face it, most of us are not going to go on to build an Uber or a Twitter or a Facebook. Most of us are going to end up in boring businesses, but that's where the real money will be made. Boring businesses. We're talking HVAC, contracting, concrete, people that are really creating and building this economy. So if that sounds interesting to you, head on over to clearlyacquired.com where you can sign up for a free 14-day trial and join the community. From there, you'll start connecting with other buyers, brokers, listings, get access to the course, join the weekly coaching calls, and ultimately be on your way to buying your next business. Kind of segueing off of that into our first story, which is something very close, I think, to both of us, which is homeschool surging in the USA. I think that a big reason why we chose to homeschool our kids coming out of 2020 was so that we could have better control over the narrative and the thoughts and the things that they are being fed. And we have thus far done a good job of raising very positive, strong-minded young people. And I think in order to be successful, you have to relentlessly audit what's going on in your head, the things that you're listening to, your overall diet of what you're being fed. And school is probably one of the worst places where you're getting fed the most noise and junk at the moment. People send their kids there and expect them to come out healthy. And healthy is more than just your diet of food intake, right? It's everything that you're consuming. So,
yeah, that's good. Well, even before we jump into it, if thinking about how public schools, not all of them to give credit, but how they can be so, the impact can be negative if you're taking that video, how students walk away feeling about where they're standing amongst their peers, why they're even here, all the things that, you and I were in public schools, what we were thinking about at times. So very interesting. Well, this article comes by way of Newsweek. And we refer to the nation, but the headline actually reads, Texas sees surge in kids being homeschooled. But if you extrapolate that, it's clearly not just Texas where this is happening, but they're profiled. They lead off by saying, years after the COVID-19 pandemic began, Texas is seeing a rise in homeschooling, new census data shows. According to the U.S. Borough Household Pulse Survey, homeschooling grew from 2023 to 2024. Nationally, 4.3 million children have been homeschooled this year, compared to 3.7 million last year.
Wow.
It's a significant jump. However, not all states saw equal rates of homeschooling growth. Texas accounted for 6% of the total homeschool enrollment in 2024, up 3.7%. Based on those numbers, the state has sustained a 69% increase in homeschooling year over year. That's significant because they're such a large state. That's in comparison to Florida, which actually saw a drop in homeschooling enrollment. California, another large state, only saw an uptick from 2.3% in 2023 to 3%, unfortunately.
Still an uptick across 38 million people.
Well,
That's
yeah, and
pretty material.
And if you think about the apparatus of California, uptick in general is a significant indicator. Right?
Yeah.
Homeschooling, meanwhile, has become a more popular parenting choice in recent history for multiple reasons, some of which we discuss on this pod. Notably, we'll close out here, many parents have expressed frustration in the past with the formal education system and want more control over the learning experience their child has. Still, in other scenarios, parents pull their kids out of traditional schooling and choose to homeschool because of bullying or safety concerns. And then where was there one more piece? Oh, even before the pandemic, the tides were turning towards homeschooling. In 2020, the Texas Homeschool Coalition found withdrawals from public school to homeschool had surged by a whopping 228% from 1997 through 2019.
Yeah. I mean, it's obvious. The kids that go to school are being told what to think, not how to think.
Yeah.
It's grossly inefficient. There are so many missing components that will set kids up for the rest of their life. We have obviously the basics, right? Math, we have, English and grammar, reading, writing, etc.
Right.
But they don't learn about money.
Right.
They definitely are being reared one direction as it relates to political worldview, cultural worldview. They don't learn about health, fitness. Those are things that have been withdrawn from school. And they most definitely aren't learning about history. And we've all heard the quote that if you do not study history, then we're doomed to repeat it. And I give you a small example, but there's a bunch of young girls in our neighborhood that all my girls hang out with. And there was a little situation that came up and I kind of watched it play out. And they were referring to a video they were watching on YouTube or something. And they said, "Oh man, he is so evil. He might be the most evil person in the world." My girls look at him and they go, "More evil than Hitler?" And literally these little girls looked at him like, "Who's that?" And they're like, "Killed millions of Jews, Hitler?" And they had no idea because they weren't being taught those things in school, right? And this is a family that I would consider smart, affluent, educated, that they just kind of like pass their kids off to school and assume that they're going to be educated appropriately. My kids spend about 4 hours a day doing school. They get state tested, and in every single subject, they're at least one full grade ahead. Some as high as 4 or 5 grades ahead. And when they're done with school, you know what they do? They work. They have a little business. They go knock doors and sell jewelry. They have a little babysitting business, pet sitting business. They help clean the office that we're sitting in right now. They are learning skills that are going to make them valuable contributors to society. Right? That's the difference. I don't want to raise robots that fit into the machine and just do what they're told. In fact, that's counterintuitive to everything that the American culture teaches.
Right.
But for doing so, from the far left, I would be considered a Christian nationalist, right? Because I want my kids to think for themselves, to be entrepreneurial, to have perspective other than what's being taught from these super woke teachers at these public schools. And the vast majority, I mean, even in our little conservative community that we live in, I mean, it's rampant. It's everywhere.
It sure is.
And so that's my take on it.
So what would be your, I guess, thinking about the entrepreneur out there who's building a business, he's busy.
Yep.
She's busy. Perhaps wife is working, maybe not. But they can see, man, I don't know about this factory that we're sending our kids to. How do they, it's such a simple question just in terms of like, how do they do it? That's not what I'm trying to ask you, but we've created this narrative where it seems not possible. Like you're almost having to, it's going to fall apart, or I have to work in order to.
Yeah, I just don't agree with that, right? There's never a right time for anything. There's never a right time to get married, never a right time to have kids, never a right time to quit your job, change jobs, buy a business, start a business, travel the world, whatever it might be. If it's important to you, you'll figure it out.
Yeah.
This kind of goes all the way back though to just traditional values, right? Of like, I have a wife who is very talented business person and she can work, but she has chosen to be a homemaker who also looks after teaching our kids. Now, that's not to say that it's going to be easy, right? Because if you have kids that are, across the spectrum of age categories, our kids are pretty close in age. So that definitely helps a bunch. But that saying, where there's a will, there's a way, is a very real thing. And at a certain point, your kids reach this rhythm where they're self-starters, right? So that's the other skill set that we're teaching our kids is how to self-start. And they do school year round. There's no 3 months off. They're literally doing, all their friends are out. They're doing school for 1.5 to 2 hours every single day. A normal day for them would be somewhere between 4 to 5 hours of school. They're continually doing that, which allows them to get 3 months ahead of all of their peers and keeps them in the rhythm. Do you get 3 months off every year?
I definitely don't.
Nobody gets 3 months. That's not a reality. And so our kids are learning these life skills that they aren't being taught in school. And so we've just decided that this is more important. And the way that I look at it is, if I wanted to send my kids to get a better education, I would send them to a private school, and it probably cost me $25,000 to $30,000 a kid. So my wife is now home with them, teaching them, and that's, saving us $65,000 a year. Plus I know that they're being reared correctly. Right. And so to me, that's invaluable.
Fact. That's good. Well, let's transition to this next story.
Yeah.
Harry Dent.
Yeah, coming off of the bubble.
Yeah.
Or coming off of homeschooling, which would be considered fringe. I didn't say this, actually. I should say this. I homeschooled when I was in 4th grade, from my 4th grade year to my 9th grade year. So back then it was considered fringe. Now it's like becoming this popular trend, right? And I turned out fine. And things that I had coming out of homeschooling was, I was a self-starter. I was an independent thinker. Nobody had to tell me when, where, or what to do. I just did it. And by the time I got to high school, I was not very easily influenced by my peers around me, because I was used to walking to my own drum. And so those are some of the other advantages that to me are invaluable that we're not talking about. So
no, that's good.
Anyway, segueing off of that. Yeah, go for it.
That's really good. Well, this one comes by way of Fox News, Fox Business. Headline reads, economist Harry Dent predicts stock market crash worse than 2008 bubble.
The bubble of all bubbles. And if you guys don't know who Harry Dent is, he's an economist, and he, predicted the 2007, 2008 crash, which there was a lot of people out there doing that. I think he's just echoing things that we already know, but I think it's very important for us to kind of consider everything that's happening, because we're getting lulled to sleep again because there hasn't been a quote unquote crash.
Yeah. Well, let's look at a couple of things he specifically said in the article here. It leads off by saying, Harry Dent, the outspoken financial author and economist, isn't reversing course from his bold crash of a lifetime declaration this past December. Speaking in an updated interview with Fox News Digital, which you guys can see the video if you go to their website, Dent cautioned that the everything bubble has still yet to burst, and it may be a bigger crash than the Great Recession. Here's some notable quotes from this interview. In 1925 to 29, it was a natural bubble. There was no stimulus behind that, artificial stimulus per se. So this is new. This has never happened. What do you do if you want to cure a hangover? You drink more. And that's what we've been doing. He goes on to say, flooding the economy with extra money forever might actually enhance the overall economy long term, but we'll only see when we see this bubble burst. And again, this bubble has been going 14 years. Instead of most bubbles going 5 to 6, it's been stretched higher, longer. So you would expect to have a bigger crash than we got in 2008 to 2009. That's very interesting. He then another quote down the line here. He says, I think we're going to see the S&P go down 86% from the top and the NASDAQ 92%. A hero stock like Nvidia, as good as it is, and it is a great company, goes down 98%. Boy, this is over, Dent stressed. We have never seen the government sustain a total artificial bubble for a decade and a half and see what happens after that. But I can tell you, there has not been one bubble, and this is far larger and longer, one major bubble in history that has not ended badly, period. I guess one more quote. He says, no time in history has housing been so widely owned and so many people having second and sometimes third homes just for speculation. While pointing out countries like China and Japan are seeing a rising number of residents buy empty properties as collateral to a potential market crash. Man, he got some fire here. Look at this other one. If you understand what real cycles are and you don't have to buy the most expensive home in history right at the top of the market and then moan for 14 years while it goes through the next downturn, like 29 to 42 or 68 to 82, or what would have been without all of this $27 trillion stimulus 2008 to 22. So he's just...
Yeah, he's basically saying we put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at housing, right around the time when we decoupled the dollar from gold and we started the Federal Reserve and we started just printing money, we've seen with every successive dollar printed, the value of assets, things like real estate, just continue to go up. And so for a point of reference, for most people listening to this, in 1987, somewhere around the time when you were probably born, right?
Your boy, yep.
The median home price in the United States was $87,000, right? So fast forward to 2024, I think the last number I saw was close to $400,000, right? So how does that happen, right? There's more housing being built, right? And there is essentially more demand, but the only reason there's more demand is because people can now buy homes with money that they don't actually have. And so that is the byproduct of inflation. And how do you unwind it? Well, I mean, the first thing we got to do is we got to get our spending in check, and we got to start hacking away at all these government sponsored programs that don't really do anything. Number two, we need to remove ourselves from the global economy and start manufacturing and producing goods here stateside and start being a net producer of commodities and goods instead of a net consumer. And then we need to honestly temper the Fed and everything that they're doing. Like to his point, right? When the hair of the dog, right? You're drunk, you get up in the morning, you slam a beer, the hangover's gone. We just keep exacerbating the inevitable, which is we need to have the hangover, experience the misery of the hangover, and then let the free market actually do what the free market will do after that. Laissez-faire, small government.
Well, and even in that illustration of the hangover, what does repeated drinking do to the body?
Correct. Yeah, exactly. It breaks down. So we constantly think that the cure is to print more money when the reality of it is to stop printing money, to cut off all these government programs, let the market contract, and then let the cards fall where the cards will fall. I don't know if they will do that.
Yeah.
Because I think, to his point, it will be so bad. It'll be unprecedented and bigger than anything we've ever experienced. But I don't know what the alternative is.
But you would just be delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, correct.
So, okay. So before we pivot, I just want to two quotes here, because people call him a fearmonger all the time and stuff like that. He says, "I just say what I see, and frankly, I don't give a darn if people don't like it, because you have to choose. Are you going to tell the truth, or are you going to make people happy? They call me a perma-bear. This is absolutely uncategorically BS. Looking at it from history and standing back, nothing's more obvious. A lot of bubbles in history just do not have the steepness or the magnitude. Why? We've never realized the power that central banks can have just to print money out of thin air."
Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't call him a fearmonger. He's just stating the obvious, right? These things have happened cyclically, time and time again. And they've happened even, let's talk about before the U.S. economy. We always refer back to the Great Depression because we're still in a 100-year period from that time period, right? So we can still kind of relate to it historically. But this is the same thing that happened before the fall of Rome, the devaluation of the currency. What they would do is, the coins used to be pure gold and silver, and then slowly but surely they would mix it in, and they would shave off more and more of the gold until the gold was like the smallest portion of the entire coin, right? That's effectively what inflation is doing every time we print dollars and cents. And so this is not uncommon at the end of economic cycles, cultural cycles, societal cycles, which we're clipping on the 100-year cycle. This is what happens, and it all ends the same way. So it's an inevitable outcome. When it happens, how fast, how aggressive it happens, we don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect segue as we kind of move into talking about Reid Hoffman.
Yep.
And, I read through the article, and I also read through the LinkedIn post that he put out last night and read all the...
I didn't see the LinkedIn post.
All the freaking, people that were aligning with Reid. You tell him, Reid. All those people who really don't understand everything that we just talked about.
Yeah. Well, let's check this out. Courtesy of Yahoo News, insider article. Billionaire LinkedIn co-founder, Reid Hoffman slams business leaders who support Trump he says a reliable legal system is not a given. So let's jump into this a little bit. Here's some overview. of the article, the founder blasted business leaders supporting Trump. He argued in The Economist that a robust legal system is essential for U.S. business prosperity. And he argues that Trump would upend this robust legal system that's essential for U.S. business prosperity.
What legal system is he talking about? Do we know? What is he talking about?
I think
the Federal Reserve.
I don't know, but if I had to make an assumption, which I don't like to do, I'm just thinking he's talking about the system we have intact.
Okay.
Basically, so a lot of the narrative that's come out with many people in the media is he's going to subvert and uproot the whole system. He's going to be a dictator. He's going to do all of these things, which is insane when you think about it. Like, it's insane that people can go on media and say he's never going to leave office. I've literally heard people say that. Millions of people watch, he's never going to leave office if he gets in. Do you know how impossible that is?
Yeah.
Like, without a complete uprooting of the system that's been around for 200 years.
Yeah, and that's not his intention at all.
So jumping back into it, he argued that a robust legal system is critical for American businesses to prosper because it keeps things in check. Courts of law and impartial juries are necessary, he said, to enforce contracts and punish fraud. But a robust, reliable legal system is not a given. It is a necessity we can ill afford to live without. We trade it away at our peril, which makes it all the more lamentable that a growing number of America's corporate and financial leaders are opening their wallets for Donald Trump, he added. Hoffman argued that if elected this November, Trump, who was convicted of 34 felonies for falsifying business records to cover up hush money payment they always add this in there, to cover up hush money payment to the adult film actor Stormy Daniels, could upend the legal system that the American economy and American businesses rely on.
That's why he's talking about the legal system.
Yeah.
Is he's trying to say, you guys are going to vote for a felon, which that whole thing is going to get overturned. But
so why would business leaders ever support someone who could lead to their downfall? Hoffman has a few explanations. Some, he said, are merely kidding themselves that Trump can be normal and controlled. Others, Hoffman argued, believed that President Joe Biden would be even more dangerous to American business than Trump would, though he described that position as misguided because the stock market, oil and gas production, employment, and GDP growth has hit highs during Biden's presidency. Okay.
Well, yeah, it's based off of so just like from the last article, that's why I put this right where I put it was, yeah, you're a part of the same system, dude. You're a billionaire. So everything going on in the world right now doesn't really impact you. In fact, you've benefited from this cheap money environment to become a billionaire. And yeah, you're terrified that game is going to end when Donald Trump comes in and says, hey, we're going to take control of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve, that's not a federally run company. Mm-hmm. It's a freaking Gestapo between the banks, the corporations, and the government to control and manipulate interest rates. He wants control over that. The fact that he is in support of not creating a centralized digital currency. The fact that he's in support of Bitcoin. The fact that he's pro-business, pro-American, and does not want to go out and fight any other wars and wants to bring manufacturing and all the things that we've just talked about back stateside, which are the only things that would actually save us. That's what people are actually talking about. So Reid Hoffman, you're just pandering to your constituents. You're probably a part of the overall marketing strategy that this whole camp has been using. And you're one of the largest funders and contributors to the liberal Democratic Party. So like, of course,
right.
Well, of course, this is what you're going to say. Right. So
closing it down with this, Hoffman argued that some business leaders believe a Trump presidency would skyrocket them to the top of a new oligarchy, while others simply fear retaliation if they don't pledge themselves to Trump.
Follow-up, oligarchy. Have we ever had one of those here in the United States?
Well, we've never officially had one, but we are getting closer by the day because, for the same reasons you just got to talking about, and with our own lack of knowledge of what we actually have in a constitutional republic.
Correct.
The responsibility the citizens have, the power that the citizens actually have, and that the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence are all about the government's limitations, not yours.
Correct.
And so we are actually closer to an oligarchy than we've ever been, which ironically enough, he talks about.
Well, and that's always their move, right? Is they're going to point the finger at you of the exact thing that they're doing.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that. It's like Well, actually, I just want to stay in top of my oligarchy, but so nonetheless, and giving him a fair shade, but what many business leaders really want, Hoffman argued, is lower taxes and fewer regulations, even at the expense of an impartial judicial system and democracy itself. There's that word again, democracy, man. They love throwing that around. And they just need to stop using it.
Correct. We're not a democracy.
We're not a democracy, nor we are a republic that has democratic processes. And it's very important that we stop using this word democracy so much, because it's
a democracy is actually a small group of people who control the overarching decisions for the grander party or people. That's actually what a democracy is.
Yeah, majority rules, right? And so it's very interesting though on this note of democracy. Oftentimes when you say that, people say like, well, you're not a fan of democracy. Well, of course we are. That's why we have democratic processes. But because we talk about democracy so much that we've even started to refer to our nation as a democracy, it's moving us down a really wrong path. But to the article's point, he's talking about business leaders ultimately running to him in fear or trying to seek favoritism. And so it's just very interesting that we're now seeing this at the same time we saw. I actually made a note of this. We just last week we saw the guys from the All In podcast.
Yep.
They were sitting there. Yeah, they were sitting
Dave
there
Sachs.
willing to. Yeah, they're sitting there willing to have a conversation and say, "Hey, I may not agree with you, but I'm going to hear you out. I'm going to listen to you. And in the name of listening to you, I would even be willing to donate some of my money to your candidate." You know. And so like, it's just funny that even the billionaires are having the guys. The era of us being neutral as entrepreneurs is over.
Yeah.
It
and
is
you
absolutely
can't look
over.
at the current options and go, that's the better option.
Yeah.
Right. It's all a marketing campaign, right? Everything they did to try to remove Trump from the ballot in Colorado and a number of other states down to going more the civil route that they just did. Those are all an attempt to try to defame him and prevent people from, voting for a criminal, which was funny. We started off with the clip where the guy's like comparing the felony accounts of like murderers and mob leaders to Donald Trump, and actually making fun of the fact that he got charged with 34 counts of basically civil felony matters, right? Versus, criminal murders.
Yeah.
And so, the Reid Hoffman is just a part of the big machine. Which is sad because I love the LinkedIn product. He doesn't really control it anymore anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah. But he doesn't want the fun to end. But truthfully, it doesn't even really affect him because he's already a billionaire.
He's a billionaire. And so let's move on, but don't let the fear tactics and the gaslighting stop you from seeking to think and decide objectively on where you're at right now. All right, so let's breeze through these next couple of ones.
Yep.
We got a bill passed to ban a CBDC. This comes by way of Instagram.
Yeah, and this is a little bit old news. It's been out for a couple weeks, but we can play it here and we can talk about why this is important.
House Republicans, as Blake just said, are going to take action to safeguard our American values by passing my bill, the CBDC, or the Central Bank Digital Currency Anti-Surveillance State Act. With this legislation, we're going to stop unelected bureaucrats in the Biden administration from using a central bank digital currency, again, a CBDC, that threatens to destroy the American way of life. Unlike decentralized digital assets such as Bitcoin, CBDCs are a digital form of sovereign currency designed, issued, and monitored by the federal government. In short, a CBDC is a government-controlled, programmable money that, if not designed to be just like cash, open, permissionless, and private with a capital P, it not only could, it will give the federal government significant transaction level data on individuals and the ability to suppress politically unpopular activity. We've already seen examples of foreign governments weaponizing their financial system against their citizens. In China, the Communist Party actually has the digital yuan that is being used to monitor its citizens, and they are building social scores based on House Republican.
So that is the fear. And we actually watched it last week on this podcast where 700 million CCTVs in China. And so you attach that kind of surveillance with a digital centralized controlled currency where the government can effectively just cut you off at any point in time. And you got a serious privacy problem. Back to, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. The people are actually in charge. Right. And as soon as you remove that power and transfer it over to a democracy where a small group of people who are actually an oligarchy, majority rule, are controlling the whole entire system, we have a major, major problem on our hands. So, I mean, I would be terrified that we're trying to roll out a CBDC. Yep. And this is, it's only furthering the case for Bitcoin. With that said, kind of building off of everything we've talked about, if you look at how do we unwind or exit out of this grand theatrical play of printing money and there not being a bubble, if we did roll over to a centralized digital currency, we could effectively do a digital currency reset. And we could reset the value of the money. We could kind of redistribute the wealth kind of accordingly and effectively solve this crash landing that's inevitably going to happen. But then at the same time,
trade-offs.
Yeah, we're giving up our freedom to basically have the government in our back pocket. And this has been slowly coming, right? As we've moved away from less cash, right? And then now we move over to like tap pay. And I can't even remember the last time I held, a stack of 50 grand in my hand, right? And so we're being kind of lulled into this, but again, it goes back to, we're not studying the history that says, hey, this is why this is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm happy that it is banned. It's still got a lot of work to do, right? That was at the Senate level, and now it's got to go through Congress, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have much commentary on it. You're just watching, you're just seeing it all play out, right? Where you're just like, okay.
Yeah, and for those of you listening today, I mean, we strategically, picked these articles to kind of architect the story of what's happening right in front of you so that you guys can be in the know about what's happening. Now, we'll kind of bring it back to entrepreneurs. One of the beautiful things about owning a business is it's an exchange medium, right? And so no matter kind of where we go with currency, the value in owning a business is you can take currency in any form. You can take it in pesos, you can take it in yen, you can take it in Bitcoin, whatever that might be. And so if you're just an employee or you only have employee income, that becomes it becomes harder to do, right? So you got to look for alternative sources. You got to be going deep down the rabbit hole of cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. And
what are my options?
So on and so forth.
Well, dude, I mean, yeah. Let's talk about ChatGPT, OpenAI.
Kind of in the same vein, right? So AI, cryptocurrency, we talked about how those two things kind of have a converging path.
Well, this clip is circulating around the internet, on X in particular. Apple reveals their OpenAI's ChatGPT partnership. It's going to be coming out in September, in particular with Siri. But let's play this clip for those of you who this is news to. We'll learn about it together.
So we're integrating them right into your experiences. And we're starting out with the best of these, the pioneer and market leader ChatGPT from OpenAI, powered by GPT-4o. First, we build support into Siri, so Siri can tap into ChatGPT's expertise when it might be helpful for you. For example, if you need menu ideas for an elaborate meal to make for friends using some freshly caught fish and ingredients from your garden, you can just ask Siri. Siri determines that ChatGPT might have good ideas for this, asks your permission to share your question, and presents the answer directly. You can also include photos with your questions. If you want some advice on decorating, you can take a picture and ask, what kind of plants would go well on this deck? Siri confirms if it's okay to share your photo with ChatGPT and brings back relevant suggestions. It's a seamless integration. In addition to photos, you can also ask questions related to your documents, presentations, or PDFs. We've also integrated ChatGPT into the system-wide writing tools with Compose. You can create content with ChatGPT for whatever you're writing about. Suppose you want to create a custom bedtime story for your 6-year-old
All right,
who
let's
loves
pause it.
butterflies and salt.
So they're rolling it out. You can find the video online. We can include a link, but we just share it because so you may not have gone deep down the rabbit hole. I'm just starting myself, but nonetheless, this is a significant move. Think of the I guess the way to put it. Think of the horses in the race, not necessarily. Don't think about yourself. Think about what's actually happening. Where the current leader in artificial intelligence, as it relates to consumer interaction, is now partnering with the leader in one of the most significant consumer products we have, and they're coming together for an experience that, having used ChatGPT, if you've used it, you know that at the bedrock, it's user input. It's user input that gives the model or the technology its, I guess in business terms, its value proposition for you as a consumer. So this is not a small deal. It may seem like something basic, like, oh yeah, it's integrating with Siri, but this is a big deal because of the institutions involved. And so not everyone is pleased about this.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of the concerns behind it are, we already know that a lot of these apps and phones are running things in the background, like location and GPS, or, some of the patents that like Facebook has where they can actually use audio and listen. The fact that your phone takes infrared pictures constantly on a regular cadence to kind of help it figure out where it's at and where it's located in space. What's the next step, right? And so it is always step one of many other things to come. And if it does in some way, shape, or form in the future start monitoring all of our activity on the phone, that's a huge security problem. And you kind of saw this rise back up in 2020, right? You saw Brave as a search engine and a browser kind of come back on top. People picking up Signal as a way to communicate outside of, Facebook and all these other channels. And so we've been looking at it for a while, but I do think you're going to start to see this divide of people who are like privacy first. And that is a good segue into kind of what Elon Musk was talking about, right?
Correct. So Elon, which you guys know, if you listen to the podcast or you follow Elon, he's really, very much so, not the biggest fan of some of the moves OpenAI has been making. But this story reads from Yahoo Finance. Elon threatens to ban Apple phones. In particular, he's talking about like within his offices of his companies. He will essentially make people get rid of them when they come through the door.
Correct.
Right? So Elon Musk says he'll ban Apple phones from his companies if the tech giant integrates OpenAI technology at the operating system level. The billionaire says visitors to Tesla and his other firms would have to check their iPhones at the door. In a social media post, he calls the integration plan an unacceptable security violation. He says it was patently absurd that Apple isn't smart enough to make their own AI, and yet is somehow capable of ensuring that OpenAI will protect your security and privacy. The threat came hours after the iPhone maker announced the partnership, which we just featured to you. AI services will be embedded across the company's products. The launch is meant to satisfy investors excuse me on this one. I'm going to skip down here just a little bit. This is actually bringing out quotes from the other people involved that are not Musk. So his concern is privacy. His concern is about when people bring these devices to his buildings, that what's happening in the business would be exposed to ChatGPT, subsequently Apple, so forth, and everyone else.
Let's just say that you've built an exclusive algorithm, tool, technology, something to that effect, and then you plug it into OpenAI, it effectively becomes public information. And now anybody can draw on that information by prompting the engine to give them feedback. And so you're going to start to see policy in and around those types of things for sure.
Yeah. Well, so one thing to note on this is that if he's talking about, he's not just talking about his businesses, and his tone is not just around his businesses. His tone is about the actual move itself and why they're choosing to make that move, and that it compromises user data and privacy. And so there's actually I'm going to show you this tweet he put out this morning or last night. It's just a picture, but
it was him talking about the phone.
He says this is how Apple intelligence works. So we have Apple, we have iPhone, then we have OpenAI, and then your data just sucking. So the Apple is, if you can't see the picture, the iPhone, she's consuming the iPhone, and instead of sharing the iPhone, it's sucking the data from the person's mouth. Yeah. So, unfortunately, many of us don't understand this. I would categorically put myself there as well.
I don't entirely either, but I can inference.
Yeah. I would love to hear him explicitly say, what is his concerns about data and privacy? And
did you see his other one where he was talking about what if Tesla made their own phone? Did you see that?
No, but that's been in talks for years now, though.
But I think he's seriously considering it now as more of a privacy issue. And in order for somebody to come and create that type of phone that would compete with an iPhone or even an Android for that matter, they have to have some pretty large platform in order to be competitive to break in
distribution now.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the people that are Twitter users would go, I might give that a go.
Yeah.
And knowing him, he would probably give the phone away effectively for free so that they would get adoption. And then once it's adopted, then they would, sell service apps, whatever.
Yeah.
Well,
Roger that. I would love to know more. Cole, if you might have to give us a breakdown afterwards on just like some of those concerns, but it's just significant because we're talking about heavy hitters at the crux of arguably the most innovative technology we've seen to date. And someone who could gain a lot is such an outspoken critic of these moves. What does he know that we don't know when he was involved in the project?
Yeah, absolutely.
But we have to pay attention to it as business owners. All right. Last 3 stories here we got for you guys.
Yeah, let's rapid fire on these ones.
Let's rapid fire on these. We got Meta spends $30 billion on Nvidia GPUs. We'll cover this real quick. Quick little video clip here.
Such a massive endeavor. And I saw in the news that Facebook had bought another 500,000 Nvidia chips, bringing the total to about 1 million. By my math, unless you got a discount, you might have gotten a volume discount, but that's $30 billion worth of chips, which would make the training of this model bigger than the Apollo moon mission in terms of research and development. Am I getting that about right?
It's staggering, isn't it?
Yep. You can pause right there.
Yeah, I mean,
the reason this is important is we've been talking a lot about AI. We talked about Moore's law on this platform. Computing power gets twice as powerful every 2 years. That was under the pretext that human beings are the ones building the computers. And now we have AI and these high-powered GPUs taking over and doing the modeling and doing the research 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so the amount of computing power and strength is going exponential. It's going hyperbolic.
Yeah.
And so it is here, and you better be aware of what's going on. So that's the whole point of that is these major companies are making huge investments into that. Don't let this be the internet will never stick or email's not here to stay. AI is here to stay.
Yeah. $30 billion is a lot of money.
It's more than I think we cut it off, but he said it was more than the Apollo mission.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did say that. Okay.
Yeah. And that guy, there's no slump or whatever. Slump. He's nobody. He's virtually, they call him the godfather of AI. He's one of the godfathers of AI. He's one of the dons. So
the guy that was speaking.
Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about Sharia law in New York City here.
Yeah, this is crazy.
They're alarmed after seeing Muslim community patrols driving through their neighborhoods in what looked like police squad cars. One America's Pearson Sharp has the details.
New Yorkers say they're shocked after seeing Muslim patrol cars roaming their neighborhoods like police squads. These Muslim community patrols just began operating in Brooklyn this year, with members dressed like police officers and driving cars identical to police squad cars.
Wow.
Even other Muslims have raised questions about the need for the patrols, with residents expressing fears this is just another form of Sharia law enforcement. Area. Others denounce residents for drinking, claiming this is a Muslim area and alcohol is not permitted.
They're alarmed
So
after seeing
to play devil's advocate here, there are Jewish communities like that in New York as well. But if the people that live there are against it, you should probably be concerned. Like they probably came here for a reason to avoid that.
Right.
And so,
well, and we have to be very clear too, like what we were just talking about with this constitutional republic, that you don't just get to decide you want to do that.
Correct.
The consent has to be there.
Of the people.
Of the governed, yeah. And so you're going to be a governing body of some try to be a governing body, you need the consent. You need the support. You need to and not just of the people that agree with you, the people who are going to be most impacted by your presence. And so,
yeah, we would typically call those mafias, right? Mafia has been doing that forever, where they come into a community and they say, hey, you're going to pay me this amount and I'm going to run security for you. And if you don't follow our rules or our laws, then we'll take you out.
It's very significant though. Like when you talk about assimilation, cultural assimilation, this is our fault. This is happening. This republic that we have, we are going to continue to see this. This happened in England also, where this type of positioning went into effect, and it radically changed the lives of people in these areas where they essentially were coming under Sharia law. And it's possible to happen here if we are complacent and apathetic. This is very much the outcome of that, because they will not be.
Yep.
So you get what you vote for.
Yep. Last story
here. We're going to talk about Nancy Pelosi. So a clip is floating around with Nancy Pelosi here. This is, I believe, on January 6th. So I mean, therefore I am. Newly released footage shows Nancy Pelosi admitting to a lack of responsibility and acknowledging the failure to have the National Guard prepared for more during the January 6th, quote unquote, riot. So
we have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that should we call the Capitol Police? I mean, the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
Okay, pause it.
Thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question.
We thought the National Guard, why weren't they there to begin with, right? That's a fair question, Nance. That's a very fair question. Well, let's look at this though. This is the original Trump video. This goes way back. I don't know how far into the clip where she actually tries to grill him on some things. We won't watch all 2 minutes of it, but just look at
on that day.
Nancy Pelosi. I don't have. Why would I tell you that? Listen, Nancy Pelosi was in charge of security. She turned down 10,000 soldiers. If she didn't turn down the soldiers, you wouldn't have had January 6th.
Did you call military or law enforcement?
What?
Did you call military or law enforcement at the moment the Capitol was under attack?
I'm not going to tell you anything. Let me put it this way. I behaved so well. I did such a good job. Nancy Pelosi turned down 10,000 soldiers. If she didn't do that, and now
Nancy
I understand.
Pelosi doesn't have
I
the
understand that the police.
So see how she's running cover for Pelosi, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to fixate on the fact that we tried to prevent this. Well, there's also a clip floating around of the letter that Trump sent. It's going to be the next one down. This comes by way of former President Trump. Go over to the next picture. But in that red box there, in addition, the Unselect Committee has willfully ignored the fact that days before January 6, 2021, I recommended and authorized thousands of troops to be deployed to ensure that there was peace, safety, and security at the Capitol on January 6th, because I knew just based on instinct and what I was hearing the crowd coming to listen to my speech and the various others would be a very big one, far bigger than anyone thought possible. So just for
the gist being, it was authorized, but nobody took action on it.
The president sought to have it ensured, and now this video comes out where she's like, "Well, how come it wasn't there?" You know why it wasn't there.
Well, this is the illusion of the president. Is like people think that he just has carte blanche on every decision that gets made, which is not true, because this is not a democracy. It's not an oligarchy. There are checks and balances in place of what can and can't be authorized by the president. Yeah. And certain things are, hey, I can authorize it, but I can't actually make the final decision. Right. This is one of those examples. And so it's just mind blowing to me that this video is leaked and she's effectively admitting that it was her responsibility, but she didn't do anything.
Yes, but she's not admitting it. We don't have time to show the other clip, but she's not admitting it. She's still doubling down on that. This is that Republicans are trying to do some sort of revisionist history. But for you and I, us out in this room and you out there, we have to say, look at the gaslighting they're throwing at us.
Always.
Not okay, January 6th is over. But why would someone who would not take ownership of their mistake deny, and then when it even comes out that it's in question, won't even acknowledge that these people don't deserve your vote.
Yeah.
They don't deserve your vote. So that's all today's rundown. This is what you have to deal with in the ever-changing landscape of entrepreneurship.
Stay ready.
Stay ready. If you got value out of this pod today, we appreciate your time. If you got value out of it, subscribe. Leave us a review on Spotify, Apple. Follow us there. The YouTube channel. Like, comment, ideas, share stories. You can find our emails. We're available. We put our time into this because we care. We care about the businesses you're building and how you have to build them. And so if you got value out of that, show us some love in some way possible. Share with a friend. Do whatever you feel led to do. We would appreciate that because we appreciate you. Until next time,
peace.
Take care.